Hey everybody, it's Tim from Tadabase here, and welcome to another episode of Build It with Tim. On today's episode, we're going to be learning a really cool technique that allows you to build custom views or filtered presets for your Tadabase application. All right, when we're done with this build, here's what this is going to look like. We have a page that contains a table component of all of this company data. Now, what you don't see on this page is that there's actually a search component that is linked to this table component where we've enabled URL parameters for and then hidden the entire component. What we can then do is create our own links with URL parameters that will open up a preset or customized view of this particular table component. So to show you an example of that, let's say we want to look at companies who had low profit and high turnover for Q2. We then select the parameters that we want, which is high turnover, low profit. And then for Q2, we would do is after April 1st, but before June 30th. What's happening then behind the scenes is we are dynamically generating a link that contains the URL parameters that we need for that hidden search component. And when I click on this link, it opens up a new tab and will filter the table for me based on the URL parameters that we defined through our custom view link. Now, this technique is really, really cool, and it's something that I actually never kind of realized that you could even do. It's funny, after so many years of building with Tadabase and all of the videos that I've done, I never thought about combining these different features until recently. So what we're going to do is we are going to build some customized views or filtered presets, if you will, where the user can create customized links that will take them to a predefined or custom view of a particular data table. All right, so here's the breakdown on how this is going to work. We're going to use a couple different features, starting with the Tadabase search component. The search component has the ability to apply filters to a particular data component. And one of the unique capabilities of those filters is that they can be applied through a URL parameter. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a second data table with some matching fields for the data table that we want to filter that allow the user to create their own custom view. And to enable that custom view to actually function like a link, we are going to use the new dynamic field. I've gotten a little bit of a head start here for the data structure and the tables and stuff that we're going to use. So let's head to the builder and check out what we've got. Now, here is our company data. This is 200 records of company information and company statistics that we are ranking. Okay, so we have the company name, then we have some statistical fields like employee turnover, profit margin, and customer satisfaction. And all of these are radio fields with the same values of low, medium, and high. I've also included a date field, which I'm realizing I could probably just rename it as date. And I included this here just to show you the capabilities of including a date value inside of this custom view. So this is the data that we actually want to filter. Now, obviously, there's many different ways inside of Tadabase that we can filter this data, but those all happen kind of on the fly, or they're predefined and preset before the page ever loads. So what we want to do is we want to give the users the ability to create custom views and then use these data points to apply a filter against this table. So here's what that's going to look like. Step one is going to be inside the page builder. We're going to create our main page where we're going to actually display all of our data. In this case, it's going to be company data. So I've created a page called companies, and here I'm going to start to add my components. I'm going to start with a table component to display my company data. And then above it, I'm going to add a new row with a search component. For the search component, I'm also going to choose the company data table. I'm going to add all of my fields that I want to filter by to this table. The trick here is that for the date field in particular, when we're using this in this type of technique, we can actually include the date field twice inside of a search component. And the reason we're doing that is because one date value is going to be is after, the other one is going to be is before. So now that we are configuring our search component and we have our fields there, we can then make sure that number one, we are linked to our table component on the page. We can do that by going to the search results tab, choose the company datum data table that we have on the page, and then we can go back to our field. Clicking on a field will then give us the ability to define our operators. So rather than enabling all of the operators, I'm going to choose predefined, select the is operator, and then choose get value from URL. Now here I can define a URL parameter. This can be whatever you want. I like to keep them simple, one word. We just have to make sure that this is something that kind of describes the filtering that we want to do, and it's something that we can easily remember. So for employee turnover, I'm just going to call this one turnover. And I'll go through this for each of my radio fields with the same exact steps. We're going to choose predefined operator, choose the is operator, get value from URL, and then give my parameter a name. So this one for profit margin will just be profit. Customer satisfaction is going to be CSAT for customer satisfaction. And now the dates, we're going to do kind of the same thing, predefined, but for one of these, we're going to choose is after. And I'll write after for my parameter. And for the last one, we will do is before, and our parameter will be before. Okay, now this page is now set up and complete. We can preview this page and start to experiment with it to make sure that the next steps are going to work as we want them to. So of course, we can use the search component as it is now in order to filter the records below it, but we don't want to use this. We only want to use the actual URL parameters. So what I can do is I can go up to my address bar and I can start to test these particular parameters. So to start using URL parameters, we're going to go to the end of the current address here, the current URL, and I'm going to start with a question mark. Then I'm going to start to type in my parameter names, then followed by an equal sign, and then the value that I want to search. And when I hit enter, this page is going to now display all of the companies where the employee turnover rate is low. Now I can add on to this URL by using the and sign and then choose another parameter. So if I wanted to do profit equals high, we've now added another URL parameter that filters our table below it. Now to clean up this page a little bit, we are going to hide this entire search component because we don't want our users to actually interact with it. We want to hide it so that we can just have these views load when the page loads with the URL parameters. Now, I suppose you could leave it if you really wanted to, but for the point of this exercise in teaching you this technique, I'm going to hide it. To hide it, I could do a number of different things. The easiest way to hide it is just simply edit the row that contains the search component. Go over to Design, CSS, and let's add a CSS class of hide. The other way we could hide this is through row visibility. So if we wanted to hide this row only for specific user roles, we could do so here with the row visibility setting. But you can see if I go back to this page and refresh it, that search component is now hidden. But I can continue to search or filter through this data by using our URL parameters. So let's add another one for CSAT. CSAT equals low. So we want to look at companies who need a little bit of help for customer satisfaction. All right, so let's move on to actually building out our system of allowing users to create their own views and their own links with their own URL parameters. Let's recap a bit on our data table that's going to store these custom views. So number one, we have a text field that allows the user to define the name of the view. So, give it a catchy name, whatever they want to do in order to remember what that view is. Next, we have these duplicate fields from the company data table above. where we are basically tracking the same thing and giving users the ability to select the same option. So employee turnover has the same low, medium, and high values. Same with profit margin, and same with customer satisfaction. Next, to handle our date fields. Now, we only have one date field or one date value inside of our company data table here. But in order to allow users to do is after and is before, we're going to save two different date values. Next, we have a connection to the users table. What this is going to do is it's going to allow each record in this table to be unique per user. Now, this is not necessarily a requirement. You could have a bunch of people within an organization or within the application all creating views that are shared amongst everybody. But in this example, we're going to link each particular custom view to a user. Now, how are we going to actually build the link that contains all the URL parameters, and how are we going to display it? As mentioned earlier, we're going to use the new dynamic field because it's a really, really lightweight, fast, and easy option for building links based on a bunch of other field values or record values. So to add a new dynamic field, I'm going to go to the Fields tab, Equation category, and choose Dynamic. Now, from here, I'm going to paste in kind of a template that I'm going to start with, and then we'll walk through it and start to fill out the rest of it. So here is what we are working with. The dynamic field can output HTML. So we are going to build an HTML link that contains all of the values that we need. So here's a quick explanation of what I've just pasted in. We have given our link a custom class of button or BTN and then BTN primary. This is going to style the link to look like a button rather than a standard HTML link. The next thing I did is target equals underscore blank. And all this is going to do is just open the link in a new tab. Now, next, under the href property here, we are actually building out the link that's going to contain our URL parameters and filter that table on our company's page. So to start with this, I've included my base URLs, and then I've started to add my URL parameters. We have turnover, margin, CSAT, after, and before. Now, the nice thing about the dynamic field is we can add our record values or field values to this particular template in order to populate it once the dynamic field actually renders. So we can start to fill those in by choosing the Add Field dropdown. I've placed my cursor right after the equal sign for the first parameter, and now I can choose Employee Turnover, and it's going to add that field ID exactly where we need it. And I'll do the same thing for margin, CSAT, after, and before. And then for the actual text value of the link, we're going to say open and then the view name. All right, now that's going to build our link, and we'll call this view link. And we can now save that field. Now, if we go back to our records page and we just give this a try, we can say this is a test view. You can see our dynamic field is starting to populate automatically. Then we can do low, medium, and high. We can add in our dates. So it's after July 1st, but before today. And the users, it's going to be the default user. Now, this is the link that was generated, and you can see it's already outputting as a button. And now that I've clicked it, it's taken me right to this page with my URL parameters in place and this filtered table that's being filtered by our hidden search component. All right, now to make this a much smoother experience, we are going to add our pages that allow us to add views, add and edit views, I guess we could say. So we'll do a table component of custom views connected to the logged in user. Again, if you don't want to connect these to the logged in user, totally up to you. You don't have to. I'm going to include a form to add a new record to this table and save my page. I'll then clean up my form a little bit to add new new records here. I don't have to do anything with the user because it's going to connect automatically. And then I will give the ability to edit the records by adding an edit link. We'll show it in a pop-up. And then we'll do the same thing with this form, just clean it up a little bit and just put all of these fields just right on top of each other in one column. All right, now last but not least, I might just move this view link all the way over to the left-hand side. And when I preview this page, we can see here is my table component with my filtered view that I can now click. It will open a new page or open a new tab and show me this filtered preset or this custom view. Now that we know everything is working as intended, we are now free to build whatever custom views or filtered presets that we want to as this logged in user. So let's say I wanted to look at companies who had low profit and high turnover for Q2. I can then select those options. So high turnover, low profit is after April 1st and before June 30th for Q2. Click save, and here is my custom view. Click that button, we open up a new tab, and here are those companies that meet that criteria. I could then go back to the My Views page at any time, and I can add another view if I want to get a new perspective on this company data. All right, so there you have it. Super cool and super useful technique for building custom views using table components, search components, and URL parameters, the new dynamic field, and of course, just the data builder and the page builder to combine all of these features. As I mentioned earlier, this is something that I never really considered ever doing because I never realized that it was possible, which is such a lovely thing about Tadabase. There are so many features and so many combinations of features that every day we learn new things and how to make your apps even more amazing than they were before. All right, so that's it for today's episode of Build It with Tim. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.